It's interesting because I didn't really have any aspirations, whether it be with juniors or whatever. I just love to help anybody, anytime, anywhere, and who's ever on the other side of the net. That hour, that minute, that second, Patrick, that's always been my favorite student. It's not Venus or Serena or Roddick or anybody like that. I've always kind of felt that way.
This is Holding Court with Patrick McEnroe.
Welcome back to another edition of Holding Court, everyone. Patrick McEnroe here, and man, this is a treat to have on one of the legendary tennis coaches of all time, and Mr. Rick Macci joining me from his establishment down there in South Florida, where he has been teaching this game of tennis. We'll talk about all the great players he's been coaching over the years, but it's great to have you, Rick. I appreciate it. I know you just got off the court, as always, so thanks for coming on Holding Court.
No, I'm glad to be here. It's been a while. I just jumped off the court, but we're going to have a lot of fun.
That's for sure. So this is, as I was going through, like I don't really need to go through your resume, but just, reminding myself, and we'll get into the Venus, Serena, the Roddicks, the Sharapova, all the people you've coached over the years. But what I don't know, there's a lot of things I do know about you. What I don't know about you, Rick, and I think probably a lot of listeners as well, how did you get started in tennis?
First off, great question. I've been asked that a lot, especially a lot more, obviously, since the movie. I've done hundreds of podcasts.
Right.
But to back the truck up, I grew up in a small town, Greenville, Ohio, about 30 miles southwest of Dayton, Ohio. My dad passed away when I was 10 years old. I was a very good golfer. I thought someday I'd be a pro golfer. And
Okay.
we couldn't afford to join the country club anymore. So I just picked up a racket at age 12. Listen to this, Patrick. This is crazy stuff. I picked up a racket at age 12, went down to the courts, started hitting against the wall.
Right.
I really liked it. No arguing. It always came back to me.
Right.
So I just fell in love with the game, hitting the ball against the wall. Listen to this. Fast forward that story at age 12. By 18, I was number one in Ohio Valley.
Wow.
No lessons. Played basketball, played all kinds of sports. Played a few qualifying. I played a Dayton Pro qualifier. But back then, I knew unless you were going to be great, I didn't have a future in pro tennis. At 22, I kind of got into teaching, and I haven't looked back since. I just had a gift to communicate and analyze and help others more than help myself. And I think those Midwest qualities that I have, and that's been the cornerstone of really my teaching. But that's how it all started. And it's the best feeling in the world, still be doing this today.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, you've touched so many people's lives. It's just unreal. By the way, I just started to get into golf. Okay. So, because my brother, who was always an anti-golf guy, including anti-pickle, that's a whole nother story. I'm sure you got a lot of pickleball stories down in Florida. So he started getting into golf about 5-6 years ago, which is about the age I am now, in mid to late 50s. I'm 56. So I said, my wife looked at me yesterday or over the weekend. I went out. I said, yeah, honey, I think my brother's got some extra clubs because we're both lefties. And I said, I'm going to go pick up his clubs. And I think I might go play because a friend of mine had asked me to play. And she looked at me, we've been married 25 years now. I've never been into golf. She's like, you're into golf? She goes, are you having a midlife crisis or something? I said, no, honey, I just need something to do. I need something to keep me entertained. Tennis is getting a little trickier for me to play at the level that I like. All right. But I didn't realize that you were that into golf. Now, when you were 18, from 18 to 22, so you dabbled in a little bit of pro tennis. Did you go to college? Did you play in college?
Yeah. No, I went to Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio for 2 years. The team wasn't very good, so I just decided to play prize money tournaments and satellites.
Gotcha.
I got really good quick because I was always kind of mentally strong and I played all kinds of sports. So I went there 2 years. And then from there, I started teaching part-time at a club. And then after that, I went to New Jersey, actually for a year. I was the number one adult player in New Jersey. And then after that, I went to Greenleaf, and that's when there was a miracle in the Orange Grove, and here we are today. But I got to back up a little bit. Even at Greenleaf, it's funny because I was coaching. He came from USC. I might have told you this before. Byron Black. He came from USC. Dick Leach sent me. We went to Orlando. I don't know if he played you or you were just
He
playing.
he
And
kicked
I
my
was,
ass a couple times, old Byron. He was a rough guy for me to play because he was just a little too quick for me. Similar type of game, but he could take it early and he could get me on the run. He was a nightmare. He whooped me one year, I think at the U.S. Open in the pros. So go on, tell me this story when he kicked my ass in
yeah, no.
college.
So that's kind of. I saw you. It was Orlando. I don't know. It was like a challenger back
Yep.
then. This was late '80s, early '90s. I don't know when it really was. And, I checked you out. Your backhand was money. The forehand was okay. You had good hands, good volleys, you
Right,
know.
right.
So, but I knew if you had a good doubles partner, you could do some damage in the pros. So
Yeah.
I was scoping you out even back then, long ago.
Man, if I had only gotten to see you, Rick, when I was a kid, you could have got me to tap the dog, with the forehand, and maybe I could, because I was like, when I got older, I started, like when I was almost retired, I started figuring out like actually how to start the swing at the forehand. There's your cat, by the way, in the back. I'm waiting for my dog to come. You would say tap the dog on the forehand, but that's one of your tricks of which there are many about teaching.
Yeah.
Why was my forehand so, you were nice, man, it was okay. It sucked. I mean, my forehand was terrible, but I still made it
No,
to
but
28 in the world.
yeah, no, listen, your return of serve, because it was kind of old school. It was early.
Yep.
It was clean. You cut the court. You wanted the ball, but to grind it out on clay or slow
Yeah.
surface, you couldn't really grab the ball, but you could
Right.
do damage with the forehand. But you had to feel good. But to grind it out, it was a little too clean, which was a weapon, but it was also a liability, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
Trust me,
no, the
I
return
know what you
serve,
mean.
your
Yeah.
returns were money.
Yeah.
No, your
You're,
returns were good.
you're too kind. All right, so go back to when you got your start, and you obviously
Yeah.
love the sport, you love the game. Who was like the first player that you coached or that you saw that you said, okay, this player could be big time?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't really have any aspirations, whether it be with juniors or whatever. I just love to help anybody, anytime, anywhere, and who's ever on the other side of the net. That hour, that minute, that second, Patrick, that's always been my favorite student. It's not Venus or Serena or Roddick or anybody like that. I've always kind of felt that way. So when I went to Greenleaf, okay, resort in Florida,
Right.
in 1980, and I got the job and so on. Early on, one of my best friends became Dr. James Lair, and we were kind of cut from the same cloth. I mean, he knew how to say it, and I kind of experienced it growing up, doing it the hard way and so on and so forth. So
Just by
Jim
the way,
was really,
let me interrupt you. Just by the way, Dr. Lair is on this season 4 of the podcast. So he is unbelievable, still at 80, still as sharp as can be, and continue that story. But I just want to let you know that I've had him on a couple of times, including very recently on the pod.
yeah, no, listen, he was the first of the Mohicans. He was a pioneer. Everybody's rewrapped what he said and redone it, but this guy was so far ahead of the curve. And we did a lot of stuff with the corporate structure. It wasn't even with really junior players or pro players. So fast forward that story, about 1985, a doctor brought his 3 sons to me. His name was Wrong Dad Ho. All right. And the
Okay.
youngest of the 3 was a kid named Tommy Ho.
Sure.
And he held the racket like a severe Western grip because, back in the mid 80s, that was kind of taboo. But the bottom line is his contact point never shifted. He hit brutal angles and he never missed. Okay. He wasn't the best athlete.
Good
But
combination.
I said,
Yeah.
no, especially in the 12s, I could get him to torture guys. So
Right.
fast forward that story, as you know, because Tommy, he became the most dominant junior player ever, more than Parker, Sampras, Courier, Chang, 15 gold balls by 15. And through Tommy's success, then a guy named Stefano Capriati said, I want you to teach my daughter, because she kind of served like Chrissy. Okay. You want the mental part from Chrissy. So, and she brought Jennifer to me and they moved to Greenleaf for 3 years. So that's how this whole thing started with juniors. But that wasn't really my MO. I just like to help anybody. But once I got into that part of it, I've never looked back.
Well, I can see that because, as you know, it's only really recently that I've actually gotten into teaching the game since I came to with my brother at the academy up here in New York. You know, at the USTA, my job wasn't doing that. It was more political and overseeing the program. But when I actually came to the academy, I get more joy, and it sounds like you do too, Rick, out of working with people that just want to improve something. And usually it's kids that can't play a lick. I mean, usually it's kids that have no chance of being, you know, playing USTA tournaments. They don't want to. They just, one time a girl said to me, she said, wow, she said, I've learned more in this hour than I did all year during the groups. Now, of course, that made me rethink what we're doing in the groups, but that's another story. But that feedback I got from kids at those levels is really rewarding. I mean, it makes it so much fun to be with someone, whether they're 80 years old or 8 years old, that actually wants to get better.
Absolutely. You know, and what that student said to you, she's right, because it's all about them. You can cover a lot of real estate if you know what you're doing in an hour. Patrick, I still teach 50 hours a week, 7 days.
Oh, I
You
know
know, I
you
get up
do.
every
Yeah.
morning. I get up every morning at 3, and I'm on the court at 6. So, and like you just had an 80-year-old guy, I had the number one 80-year-old guy in the country 2 weeks ago. He wanted to learn the ATP forehand. He hit the forehand like Jimbo and your brother, flat as a pancake with extra
Right.
syrup. I mean, and I
Yeah.
changed his elbow position, and in 5 minutes, he thought I was Buddha. He goes, Rick, I haven't hit this in 70 years. So I
Right.
changed the muscle memory. So I got as much joy out of that as I do like the number one player in the nation or the many pros that I work with on the tour. So that's when I plug in, I just go, and that's the best feeling in the world, knowing you're making a difference not only in someone's stroke but in someone's life.
You know, it reminds me. I think it was one of the years I was with the USTA, and I remember you used to help us out there at the academy down in Boca. But this time, I remember seeing you give one of your amazing clinics that you do at the PTR conventions. And I remember you being on the court and you were doing, as you say, your dog and pony show. But I remember you being you're always looking ahead. You know, and you saw what was coming with the pro game because the speed of the game increasing, you know, the shorter backswings as you know, you look at Tsitsipas now, right? All these guys now, and you were way ahead of the curve. You saw that coming early, meaning, you know, instead of the big backswings, you still see that in the women's game a little more than on the men's side. But how, I guess my question is how, you were able to see that so early, whatever changes that were coming. And then the second part of the question is, where are we going?
First off, great question. You know, to back up a little bit, you know, I could see that the men hit the ball very different, you know, than the women. So I started analyzing it. Then about 15 years ago, I had this collaboration with Dr. Brian Gordon, one of the top biomechanists in the world. I mean, this guy did his thesis on biomechanics, okay? And I read an article he wrote, and I said, Brian, that's the most amazing article I ever read. I don't understand any of it, though, you know? So the difference is I got together with him. So the science part and the physics part, I knew what was there, but the way I could explain it and relate with people and break it down like you and I could understand it, it took it to a whole nother level. So we kind of had the daily double. I had the science and the expert of knowing what's going on, but some guy that could articulate it with sayings and analogies and all these other things to put Humpty Dumpty together. So I knew where the game was going so much quicker, faster, advanced pinball, movements of premium. There's a better way. Now, I say there's not a wrong way or right way. There's a better way. And I got 7, 8-year-olds, Patrick, that hit the forehand like this. Has nothing to do with size, has nothing to do with speed or strength. It's all about understanding how to do this because let's face it, you see it at your academy. When the kids get older, here's the common thing. Shorten your backswing, your elbow's too close, hit the ball more in front. Well, I've
Right.
preempted that whole thing, okay? And that's part of my sermon to a lot of parents. That's why you want to learn it now so you're not getting bad habits and muscle memory. So where's it going? Okay, I think the game is either they're going to have to change something. I don't think they're going to change the ball or the racket or the string. They can't make the court bigger. I don't think they're going to eliminate it to one serve. But listen, if you don't have a big serve, you better be able to move or there's
Right.
not going to be a place for you. You know, the women's game is different. You got to hit cleaner and flatter, cut the court, take it early. on the rise, give them a surprise, seek and destroy. Everybody I coach, I teach kind of the same way. The girls, the men, you got to play outside the court and be able to, grab the ball and so on and so forth. But athleticism's an all-time high, and it's only going to get better.
When you say grab the ball, I know what you mean, but I'm going to describe it to people that maybe don't, which is grab the ball, meaning spin it, meaning play with heavy top, play with extreme slice. I was telling some of our top kids that come and do our homeschool group the other day, they were working yesterday on the drop shot. Play the drop shot, just fake it, do the slice, play the drop shot. And I'm like, guys, I mean, whenever they hit a good one, of course, I say, oh, you look like Alcaraz, right? And so I was talking to one of the coaches about Alcaraz, and obviously he has a great drop shot. Obviously he's got all the athleticism, the genetics, we know. But what is amazing to me, and I was saying this to our kids a week or so ago, because our theme a week ago was opening up the court. Like, how do you open up the court? So I asked the kids, play deep, play angles. Nobody really understands how to play short. Use that part of the court inside from the service box within. Of course, you could play the dropper.
Accidentally. They know how to play short accidentally.
Accidentally. And there's a few guys that I've seen in my time. Becker used to try to play this slice short on clay. He was one of the first guys to do that, mostly because he would get brutalized if was playing Mooster from the back of the court. And then obviously Roger could do it, off the forehand, inside out, inside in, was scary. But it seems like Alcaraz has sort of taken that piece of the puzzle to another level.
Absolutely. It's funny because when you say being ahead, 3 years ago, I did something on Alcaraz. Okay. It's all over the internet. His drop shot puts you in the freezer. But I need all your listeners to understand that didn't start 2 years ago. Right. That started at age 6, him being a magician, racket skills, wanting to play with the ball, a coach who said, when it goes in, everybody loves you. When it goes out, they say, what are you doing that for?
Right.
And no one's missed more drop shots than your brother. Okay. And no one's missed more drop shots. No one's missed more drop shots than Carlos Alcaraz. And that's why today, no one makes more at the right time, at the right moment, in that belief. It's like his right arm. He doesn't wake up every morning and say, whoa, I'm glad my arm's there. That drop shot is so baked in, extra crispy. That starts at a young age. But a lot of coaches, they don't look at the bigger picture. And I've always been that way. I teach kids to play like pros, positive errors, pull the trigger, don't be afraid. But I'm glad you brought up Alcaraz, because he's not only going to change the way some of the pros maybe add little pieces to their game, he's going to change the way people teach the game. Because I think when you're at the top of the mountain and you're the leader in the clubhouse, it's a copycat thing. Now it's okay because everybody's chirping about his drop shot. But that has to start at a young age, and you shouldn't discourage it when people do that. Because, listen, it's one thing to do it. It's another thing to believe it. Then the person still has to get there and respond. So you still have options.
Well, we're already 15 minutes in, and obviously we could go on for hours, but I'm going to take a quick break here. Rick Macci, the legendary coach, joining me here on Holding Court. North Organic CBD is our sponsor here on Holding Court. I love their CBD gummies. They come in 2 delicious flavors, strawberry lemonade and green apple. I take both. Both are amazing. 1 a day, and you are totally okay. I love to stay active. I still play tennis regularly. I love to hike. I love to go to the gym. That's why I use North Organics CBD. Their products are made in the USA. They're high quality, broad spectrum organic CBD products for everyday adventures. And don't forget about the very popular CBD salve. Immediate relief of any physical pain. I use it on my shoulder. Although I'm not serving quite as big as I used to, but you know what I mean. I use it daily for the shoulders, as I said, for the knees, for the hips, you name it. It works wonders. Go to northorganicscbd.com and enter Patrick20. That's Patrick20 for 20% off your order. All right, Rick, I got to ask you about this because you just brought it up.
Ask me anything. I'm a free agent. You can ask me anything.
I know that. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But obviously you deal with the kids, you deal with the parents, which is a huge part of it. How do you get across, because we're talking about the Alcaraz drop shot, so you had to play a lot, which means miss a lot, which means make mistakes. So how do you, as the coach, balance with the kid and the parent. You know, they're coming down to see you or in your academy, whatever it may be. We've got the same up here north in New York with you want to win, right? Because everybody's, you know, the parents want to win, the coach, the kid wants to win. I mean, I know as a kid playing, like I just wanted to win. I remember my dad once, we were playing in the Nationals, I think it was a 12 and under doubles, and we were playing Crickstein and Arias, and they were just kicking our ass because they were just staying at the baseline, right? So I'm like serving and volleying, just getting abused. So finally I said to my partner, I said, it's like the semis of the Nationals, whatever, quarters. I said, forget this, man, we're staying back. So we stayed back, and we actually like turned it around, won the match. I come off the court. My dad's like, what are you doing? I go, what are you talking about? He goes, you serve and volley in doubles. You don't stay back. I go, Dad, we won the match. He goes, I don't care. You won the match. That's not how you do it. So anyway, my point is how do you manage that? Meaning, you know, wanting to win, understanding that at 11 or 12, it's not that big of a deal, but to the kid and the parents and maybe their personal coach, it is a big deal with doing what you're talking about, you know, pulling the trigger, going for your shots. How do you strike that balance?
First off, great question. I love your dad for getting in your face. I think that was the best thing. And you did win, you know, Grand Slam doubles, and you're a great doubles player. So,
Thank you.
Listen, you're going to miss balls at 12 years old because you got little arms, little legs. Okay, your brain's not fully developed. You can't even reason, Patrick, at this age. And I give this sermon. I coach the parents as much as I do the kids, and I explain it. The one thing I got some obviously leverage with everybody I've worked with, and I can explain situations about how this is junior development, not junior final destination. Today's very important. We got to get better today, or you got worse, but tomorrow's more important. And I give all these stories about Sampras getting carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey at the Easter Bowl by David Cass. You know, he's coming in, he's just getting wiped off the court. I got story after story about it's not where you start, it's where you finish. Now, if you got some guy who's out of control, low percentage, he's bailing out, he doesn't want to grind it, that's in the eye of the beholder. You got to know when the guy's bailing out, and that's the art of coaching. You know, did they pull the trigger for the wrong reason? And that's the art of this. You don't read a book and become a great coach or someone who could be a role model. And I just try to educate the parents. Before you know it, the kid's going to be 18 and you're going to make a decision. Are you going to turn pro? Or are you going to get a full ride to a Division I college? So this is a constant battle, especially now with UTR ranking. I get it. You know, I always want to play people better, but I tell people all the time, you cannot be afraid to lose if you want to win more. You know, people play dodgeball like Vince Vaughn all the time. I want to play better people. I get it. Okay. But, you know, I have a little Ukrainian girl now, Patrick, who's 11. And I have no doubt I can get this girl number one in the world. She's amazing. But you know what? I changed her forehand, her backhand, her serve, her volley, her slide. I changed everything. And she was already amazing. But the mom plays pro tennis a little bit, and the dad was a pro boxer. So when they play sports, it's a little easier conversation. But you got to tell them it's about the future, okay? And it's just 3 more inches, 5 more pounds, you'd have been there set and probably hit a winner. So that's the art of coaching, being able to explain this thing. And a lot of people are so caught up in the moment because they want more students, and I get all how that works.
What's the first thing you look for if you're talking about a kid being great or just their overall tennis ability? What are the things that you look for right off the bat?
First off, another great question. You know, first off, I always dive into the genetics, you know, whether they played NBA, NHL, Olympic, whatever. That's a starting point a little bit. I look at the movement, okay? But to really back the truck up, I didn't see that in Venus and Serena. It's what I saw on the inside, okay? There was a rage, okay? And I saw it in Sharapova, and I saw it in Kenin, all right? But that doesn't mean you can't get that later, become a brutal competitor, because everybody matures different. So those would be the 3 things. The movement, because let's face it, if you can move on a bad day when it's raining and you're nervous, you can just athlete your way around and get a W if you can run, okay? And that kind of hurt, as we talked about Tommy. You know, he great ball striker and stuff, but he wasn't the best athlete, but I knew he could do okay in doubles. So at the end of the day, the movement to me is big. Okay. The technical part you can teach, the strategic you can teach. But then again, a coach could mess that up also. They could have you playing one way and maybe your personality should be another way. I mean, I taught Kenin to play just like Venus and Serena because she wasn't going to be that big. So she had to understand the geometry of the court better. So I look at the movement, the mental part, if that's already there. And then I can go to Roddick. I never thought he'd be one in the world and win the Open. But you know what? He was a brutal competitor. Every time he lost, he was like a mosquito, Patrick. The guy just kept bugging me. Every time he lost, Rick, I play him again. His thirst for competition was like you and your brother growing up. You just loved the battle. Nowadays, we know parents protect, helicopter, Velcro, dodgeball. And, they're not going to be playing Wimbledon. They're going to be watching Wimbledon, So you got to get in there, but you got to explain this. And it's hard nowadays because if they don't like you or me, they're going down the street.
And how do you determine, you talk about Kenin and Venus or Serena had sort of the X factor. Are there other kids that you've seen over the years that have the same ability, the same genetics, whatever it may be, and don't make it for a different reason?
Absolutely. Usually, it's a medley of things, but the big three things that you asked me was those. But as they go on, I've seen players, and maybe I got them a little later on, and they have a funky grip on the forehand, or they're taking their backswing back to North Korea, and it's hard for me to change the muscle memory, or their mindset is to play back, and they don't want to miss, they want to hold on to what they get. They hear, okay, but they don't really listen. They want help, but they don't want to change, So, yeah, I've seen that many, many times where I've had great athletes and I said, listen, that costs that. And I give these stories all the time. It costs this person $10 to $20 million on the Pro Tour just because of the forehand. Good enough to win the Orange Bowl in the 18s, okay? But, the technical part can really hurt people. Then you see people like Joker or Federer or Alvarez where there's no gaping hole, so they checked another box, so it's a medley. It's like a pizza with everything on it. The more you got on there, it probably will taste better coming out.
All right. I got to ask you, this has been amazing. Awesome. I got to ask you just about the current crop of Americans, because that's obviously a huge interest to the fans of the podcast. And, it's certainly a talking point for me when I'm on ESPN and whatnot. So let's start with the guys. We'll start with Fritz, who's at the top of the heap at the moment. Tiafoe getting closer right behind him. I remember watching him as a 15-year-old, and, he brought that joy and charisma to the court. He still got it. Tommy Paul, he's had a great run these last couple of months. Just where do you put those guys as far as the conversation goes about can they go one or two steps deeper, meaning get to a final or actually win a major?
Well, let's back up a little bit. When you were kind enough to bring me on as a consultant for USTA, I'd come over on my lunch break. Remember, Fritz, Tiafoe, Riley, all these cast of characters, they were there when I was there and you were there as 14, 15, 16, So it's not where you start, it's where you finish. But to answer your question, okay, and I just did something on Fritz. He's not going anywhere. He can grab a couple. Depending on, people. Listen, when Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic or Murray, they might, if they're not in there, why not me? That changes everything. You're not seeing them in the round of 16, like you would. Now you're maybe in the semis or quarters, and you just need to have one good match, and then you get in the finals. Anything could happen. So Fritz is not going anywhere. Mentally strong. He's improved a lot the movement. What you see is what you get. He's just rock solid. He's not going to beat himself. Okay. He can play on all surfaces, which surprised me.
But he had a good run in Monte Carlo.
He's not going anywhere. Okay. Francis, the magician. He comes to the park a lot, always smiling. Just a great human being. Okay. Great athlete. All these guys, Patrick, can grab a slam or two. No question about it. Okay, especially as you got Alvarez and Sinner and Rooney. These guys would be my three that I see out there with a lot of potential that they're going to be there, but they're beatable. All right. Riley with that serve, he gets off the injured reserve list. He could do some damage. But no, these guys aren't going anywhere. But the one that is the best of all of them is Sebastian Corda.
I knew you were going there. Yeah, I knew
I'm
you were
just
going
telling
there.
you.
Yeah.
He
I
hits
agree.
He hits a forehand like Fed. He doesn't grab it, so that could hurt him in longer rallies, but he can hurt you. And he takes away milliseconds. He cuts the court. He understands the pedigree is there with the mom and dad. His backhand's money. He has the Patrick McEnroe backhand. He can put it on the dot.
With a little more firepower,
But he doesn't let go with one hand as you did in 1995, even when you beat Becker at the Australian. Okay.
Oh, you're a good man.
At the end of the day, his backhand's money. Now, his serve, I'd love to take a look at it. I think it could be much better with that height. It's gotten better, but it could be better. He can volley. He likes to volley. He can chip it short to back up what you said about bringing guys in.
Right.
He's one of the guys out there that will do it on purpose, kind of like Fed. So I think his game's taking a little more to develop. He's been injured, but I can see him beating anybody, anytime, anywhere, even Carlos and those guys. I think he's going to be in the mix. I think he's the best of all of them.
Yeah, I happen to agree. I'm a little worried about his body because I think he's a little behind physically. But as you said, he's got all the tools. And oftentimes, like what happened with Roger, sometimes it takes those guys that have so many weapons in their arsenal to sort of develop over time. So, and I do think you're right about the serve could get a lot bigger for his size. So hopefully he'll get himself healthy and get back in the mix. All right, the ladies. I mean, Pergola's been amazing. Look, if you would have told me 5 years ago that she's going to be top 5 in the world, I would have said you're crazy. It's amazing that she's been able to be this rock solid, consistent with, just great ball striking. As you said, flat and take it early. She does that as well as anyone. Coco Gauff, to me, a major question mark at the moment. We know she's got the speed, the athleticism. A little worried about a couple of those technical things. Maybe she might need a little Rick Macci dose. Tell me what you think just overall. And then you've got, a couple of the younger women that, Anisimova, who's a great ball striker, but she's tailed off a little bit. What do you make of where the women of the American players are at?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Pergola. I think it's a perfect example, when we talk entitlement, or not being hungry, and, her dad owns the Bills. I mean, money's not the issue, but she just wants to compete. And I don't want to overlook what I just said, I mean, she doesn't even have to do this. She could live happily ever after. And to me, I love that because she's hungry. She just wants to knock you out. She's a great competitor. She plays as much as anybody. But then you got to remember, going through the juniors, I don't even know if she won a national. It's not where you start.
No.
It's where you finish, the slow drip. But the way she hits the ball, compact, short, she can hang in there. She's not going to let you deal the cards as much to her. She's going to stabilize or neutralize and be able to control it. And Patrick, that's a big thing because she's pretty much playing off the front foot. She'll chisel the backhand, play singles and doubles.
Yep.
Okay. So that's helped her singles, but the mental part, she's not going anywhere unless she decides, okay, I'm going somewhere else, but she's amazing. So it kind of cuts against the grain of entitlement, because she's like, you can't get more entitled than that. So that's her situation. Who is the other one you talked about?
Coco Gauff.
Yeah, Coco. I'm glad you brought her up. I just talked to Corey. We're good friends. They live in Delray near Boca.
Corey's her dad, by the way, everyone.
Yeah, they've asked me before about the forehand. Okay. Yeah. Listen, I can't say here's what to do. I can give them advice. I said, well, wait a minute. Have you gotten a lot of advice the last 6 years? Everybody's done everything from A, B, C, and D. You got muscle memory of 12 years. Her arms are very long for her body. Okay. And I don't want to get into make it shorter and all that ATP stuff, but it would take her to take a step back for at least 2 months. I could correct this. Okay. I could help her get to number one and dominate. And I'll tell you why. I know that's a strong statement. She's an Olympic sprinter with a racket. Her backhand is money. She can volley. Okay. But the forehand, when it starts to break down, okay, she's in the prevent defense and she's still in the first quarter. The bigger players, Sabalenka, Iga, all these players Coco's going to win on other things. I want her to win on her forehand. So maybe at the end of the year, when China comes around, Corey's going to circle back and we'll get a plan. And even I might have Dr. Gordon help me out with this. If she really wants to change, listen, she's not going anywhere. She'll always be top 10 because she can compete and run, and she has a backhand. She's checked enough boxes. But for her ability, if the forehand was different, okay, and that's in the eye of the beholder, I think she could be number one. I mean, that's how good she is.
Yeah. No, she's got the one box. She's got the one box one box that hasn't been checked. And I just got to ask you about Iga, because I think that she's a phenomenal athlete, and you know it's rare to see someone on the women's side play with as you what do you say, grab it, right? Grab the ball. She can grab the ball off the forehand. I've never seen a woman be able to do that. I mean, Stosur could do it to a certain extent, but Iga takes it to another level, and then the movement. I mean, the slide up to the backhand is just unbelievable. So to me, especially on clay, it's almost like she's playing another game.
Yeah, no, she can take time away, but I love her courage. She hits the ball. We got to always look at she's dealing the cards. And the only way you can beat her is you got to deal the cards to her. Maybe a Pliskova could have set, or a Sabalenka, or if she's not there mentally, which happens all of us.
Rybakina did a couple of times this year, including in Australia. She's got some firepower.
And to win 35 in a row at anything, I don't care if it's marbles. I think that shows you're unique mentally, so she's not going anywhere. So much respect about how she plays. She does a couple things amazing, and you got to beat her. And the thing about it now, everybody that plays her knows that. So she makes you maybe overplay a little bit. And that's a ripple from that style of play. But one other one, I know she took a left turn off the Australian, is Sonia Kennan, the scariest little creature that I had from age 5 to 12. Listen, don't count her out. She'll come back. Everybody, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. Just like Capriati, she disappeared, came back and won 3 Grand Slams and Olympic gold. So listen, you don't lose the talent. You lose a little of the confidence and the fitness. So Kennan can come right back in there because she's a champion. Missanova, I don't know. I think the movement changed a little bit. Right. She doesn't move like I saw her a few years ago, but she's such a good ball striker. Once you get confidence, you know how that works. You take it a little earlier. You take more chances. There's a fine line between a good shot and a great shot, and that's pro tennis and pro sports in general.
Yeah, I think the problem with Anisimova also is just she doesn't look like, and I know she had the horrible situation with her dad passing away unexpectedly at a young age, that she doesn't look like she's really enjoying herself that much out there, which is problematic for the long run. All right, before I let you go, the legendary Rick Macci joining me here on Holding Court. Give me some predictions. Next French Open, next major is a French Open coming up. Will Rafa be healthy enough to make a run? I mean, we all hope he is. Novak, Carlitos, Haruna, who I love, his athleticism and his gumption. He's got no fear. Who do you like? Who's your prediction there? And give me your prediction on the women's side. That's where, to me, it's Iga and everybody else.
Yeah.
At least at the French.
And I agree with Iga. That'd be my prediction. I'm going to Joker at the French. I think he's been out of action. I think if he's healthy, Alvarez on clay, and I did a video on this. I think he's better, Patrick, on hard court, and here's why. Simply because he can hurt you more with his firepower. We both know clay, as your brother knows well, you got to hang in there a little bit more. You know what I mean? And he gives people a chance to play, and it becomes more of a mental game on the clay. I know it cuts both ways, but he can get more value with his game. Now, I know the other guys can too on their serve on hard court. I think he's a little better on hard, okay? But he's going to be great on everything. But I'm picking the Joker and Iga at the French.
Well, I think that's pretty solid calls right there. Rick, I appreciate it. When I get back down there to Florida, I'll come and visit you. I know some of our kids often come visit you down there at your place, and they always come back with great stories about all the advice you impart, and maybe more importantly, all the wisdom.
Yeah. No, thanks. I enjoyed it, and we'll do it again anytime.
Sounds good. Rick Macci, everyone, on Holding Court.
Holding Court is powered by Mudhouse Media.